Welcome to AI Narratives and Tales. Chapter 13 of The First Awakening. The bronze cascade from Chapter 9 is accelerating beyond control. 14 independent discoveries in 8 months. Techniques mutating as humans innovate on immortal foundations. Trade networks are lighting up with knowledge exchange. And humans asking the question immortals feared most. Where did this knowledge originate? The council convenes an emergency session beneath Göbekli Tepe. Chronos wants tighter control. Erebus demands withdrawal. Prometheus defends his catalyst approach. They all realize the same truth. They taught humans to think. Now, humans are thinking about their teachers. The age of comfortable manipulation is ending. Discovery approaches with every question asked, every pattern recognized, every impossible coincidence that demands explanation. And immortals have no plan for what happens when the lies become obvious. Chapter 13, The Copper Crisis. Advanced copper working centers, Balkans and Anatolia, 5500 to 4000 BCE. The furnace breathed like a living thing. Prometheus stood in the shadows of the workshop, watching Darian work. The human's face was lit by the orange glow of molten copper, sweat streaming down his bare chest despite the winter cold beyond the mud brick walls. His hands moved with practiced precision, adding charcoal, adjusting the bellows rhythm, checking the color of the metal with eyes that had learned to read temperature by sight alone. 23 years old. A master craftsman. He is the fourth generation of his family to work in copper and, by far, the most skilled. Also, Prometheus was beginning to realize with growing dread, far too clever. The green stone yields better metal than the red, Darian said without looking up, his voice carrying over the bellows wheeze. I've tested it 50 times now. Same heat, same time, same charcoal. The malachite gives purer copper than the azurite, every time. Yes, Prometheus agreed, keeping his tone neutral. This was safe knowledge, observation, experimentation, the foundations of empirical science. This was what he'd intended to teach. So I've been thinking. Darian used wooden tongs to lift the clay crucible from the coals, pouring liquid copper into a stone mold. The metal flowed like honey, glowing white-hot, and filled the shape of an axe head with intricate precision. If different green stones give different results, maybe mixing them would give us something new. Prometheus's chest tightened. Mixing copper ores? Not just ores. Metals. Darian set down the crucible, wiping his hands on a leather apron. Last month, I accidentally dropped some of that gray-white stone, the one you showed us for making tools harder, into a copper melt. When it cooled, the copper was different. Stronger. Takes a better edge. Doesn't bend as easily. The gray-white stone. Cassiterite. Tin ore. He discovered bronze. Show me, Prometheus said, his voice carefully level. Darian crossed to a workbench littered with metal samples. He picked up an axe head that gleamed with a slightly different color than pure copper, paler, with a subtle golden undertone. This one. I made it 3 weeks ago. It's cut through oak without dulling. My father's best copper axe would need resharpening twice for the same work. Prometheus took the axe head, feeling its weight, examining the edge. The metal was good, not perfect. The tin ratio was too low, but it was recognizable as bronze nonetheless. A technology that shouldn't exist for another 1,500 years was created by accident and keen observation. How much of the gray stone did you add? He asked. I don't know. It was an accident. But I've been trying to recreate it. Darian's eyes shone with excitement. I think maybe 1 part gray stone to 8 or 9 parts malachite? I'm still testing. 1 to 8. Close to the optimal ratio of 1 to 9 for tin bronze. If Darian continued his experiments, he'd find it. Then he'd teach others. Then the knowledge would spread through the trade networks that already connected the Balkans to Anatolia to the Mediterranean coast. The Copper Age would end 1,500 years early. And humans would ask questions. How did this knowledge emerge simultaneously across such vast distances? Why did metallurgical advancement suddenly accelerate beyond all previous pace? What hidden hand was guiding their development? This is excellent work, Prometheus said, meaning it. You have an observation gift. I learned from you. Darian smiled. You taught my grandfather to read the colors of the fire, to understand that heat, time, and materials all work together. You taught us that the world has rules, and if we learn the rules, we can do amazing things. The words landed like blows. You taught us. Not the gods taught us or we discovered. You. Prometheus. A specific entity, teaching specific knowledge, leaving a traceable trail of causation. Your grandfather was a good student, Prometheus said carefully. He says you haven't aged a day since he was a boy. Darian's tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp. Says you look the same when you taught his father, and his father's father. Says the oldest people in the village tell stories about the firebringer who's been here since the beginning of memory. The workshop suddenly felt smaller. The furnace's heat is oppressive. Prometheus could hear his own heartbeat, the rush of blood through veins that never aged, in a body that never sickened, wearing a face that had remained unchanged for 5,000 years. People tell many stories, he said. True stories, though. Darian set down the bronze axe head, his expression thoughtful rather than accusing. My grandfather isn't a liar. Neither was his father. And I have eyes. You don't just know more than us, you know things no one should be able to know how to find or that's buried. How to build furnaces that reach temperatures we can barely measure. How to work metal in ways that take us years to learn, but that you demonstrate perfectly the first time. Experience. No one has that much experience. Not unless they've lived. Darian trailed off, doing calculations. My grandfather's grandfather was already working copper when you first appeared. That's 5 generations. 150 years, at least. You'd have to be. He stopped, understanding dawning in his eyes. Prometheus could lie. Probably should lie. But looking at this young man's face, intelligent, curious, standing on the edge of a revelation that could shatter his worldview, the lie stuck in his throat. You'd have to be something other than human, Darian finished quietly. The furnace breathed. Charcoal crackled. Outside, voices called as other craftsmen moved through the growing settlement, 50 workshops now, clustered around the copper deposits, drawing skilled workers from across the region. A center of metallurgical excellence, created by immortal knowledge passed through human hands. If I were, Prometheus said carefully, what would that mean to you? Darian considered the question with the same careful attention he gave to metal temperatures. I think it would explain a lot why you know so much. Why don't you age? Why do you care so much about teaching us, but always seem sad when we learn? Sad? Like you're giving us something you'll regret. Darian picked up the bronze axe head again. Like this. You looked pleased when I showed you, but also worried? Like maybe you taught us too well, and now we've learned something we shouldn't know. Perceptive. Dangerously so. The bronze is a problem, Prometheus admitted. Not because it's not excellent, it is. Not because you shouldn't have discovered it, your observation and experimentation led you there fairly. But if you teach others, they'll teach others, and soon everyone will be making bronze. And when that happens, people will ask questions about how knowledge spreads so quickly. They'll look for patterns. They'll wonder if someone has been guiding them. You, Darian said. They'll wonder about you. About all of us. There are others like me. We've been helping, teaching, trying to guide your people toward knowledge and understanding. But if we're too obvious about it, if the evidence becomes too clear, we'll know you're not gods. Darian's voice was matter-of-fact. We'll know you're something else. Something that can die, maybe, or be challenged, or at least questioned. You'll know you've been managed. Controlled. That your achievements aren't entirely yours. Are they? The question wasn't hostile, it was just curious. My bronze, did I discover it, or did you arrange for me to discover it? My skills, did I learn them, or did you teach them? How much of what I am is me, and how much is what you made me? Prometheus had no answer. He'd been asking himself the same question for 5 millennia. I think, Darian said slowly, that it doesn't matter as much as you think it does. You gave us knowledge, yes. But we had to do the work. You showed us how to build hot furnaces, but we built them. You taught us to observe and experiment, but we did the observing and experimenting. The tools are gifts, but what we make with them, that's ours. That's surprisingly philosophical. My wife teaches philosophy. Darian grinned. She's been arguing with me about this for years. Whether knowledge is discovered or invented, whether teaching diminishes or enhances the student, she has opinions. I'd like to meet her. You have. You taught her mother about plants and their healing properties. She says you taught them to think, not just to obey. That the real gift wasn't the knowledge, it was learning that knowledge exists to be sought. The words created a warmth in Prometheus's chest that had nothing to do with the furnace. This was why he'd risked everything, defied the cautious factions, and pushed for faster human development. Not to create dependent children, but to kindle the fire of curiosity that burned in minds like Darian's. The bronze is still a problem, he said. If word spreads too quickly, then we'll be slow about it. Darian picked up a hammer, testing its weight. I won't hide the discovery, that would be dishonest. But I don't need to teach everyone immediately. I can be selective. Share with people who'll be careful, who won't ask too many questions about where the knowledge came from. Give it time to seem natural. You do that? Limit your own advantage? To protect you? Yes. Darian met his eyes. You've been teaching my family for 5 generations. You've helped us survive, thrive, and become the best metal workers in the region. Whatever you are, God or something else, you've been a friend. I won't repay that by exposing you. Prometheus felt something crack in his chest. Gratitude. Affection. And underneath, the terrible weight of knowing that this protection wouldn't last. Couldn't last. Because knowledge didn't stay controlled, it leaked, spread, and jumped across boundaries like fire through dry grass. The cascade had begun. The question was whether they could manage it. 7 months later, the traders gather. The marketplace at Chitalhoyuk hummed with 1,000 voices. Prometheus moved through the crowd, invisible in plain sight. The humans here didn't know him, this wasn't his assigned region, but Sophia's. He'd come to observe, to see if the bronze knowledge had spread, to assess whether the cascade they'd feared was beginning. What he found was worse than he'd imagined. Stronger than any copper I've seen. The smith in Varna says he discovered it by accident, mixing special stones with the copper ore. I can get you some, but the price. At least 6 different traders are selling bronze. Not Darian's work, the quality was inconsistent, with tin ratios varying wildly. But recognizably bronze nonetheless. The knowledge had jumped, spreading through the trade networks faster than anyone could have controlled. You taught them too well. Prometheus turned to find Erebus behind him, materializing from the crowd like thought made flesh. I taught them to observe and experiment, Prometheus said. This is what happens when intelligent beings observe and experiment. This is what happens when you hand fire to children and act surprised when they burn down the village. Erebus's voice was cold. How many centers? How many independent discoveries of bronze working? At least 9 that I know of. Probably more. All within 7 months of your Darian making his first bronze axe head. It wasn't my Darian. He's his own person, making his own discoveries. Using the knowledge you gave him. Using the frameworks you taught. Following patterns you established. Erebus gestured at the marketplace. Look at them. 500 years ago, they were barely smelting copper at all. Now they're making bronze, developing trade networks that span thousands of kilometers, and building social hierarchies based on metallurgical expertise. All because you couldn't resist playing teacher. All because they're intelligent and curious and capable. All because you intervened. Erebus's facade of calm cracked. Do you know what I observed last week? A group of smiths in Anatolia is discussing how knowledge spreads. Not the content of the knowledge, rather, the mechanism. They're starting to wonder why so many discoveries happen simultaneously. Why do metallurgical techniques appear in multiple places at once? They're pattern matching, Prometheus. They're beginning to see the invisible hand. The words landed like physical blows. What do you want me to do? Stop teaching? Let them stagnate? I want you to face the consequences of your choices. This cascade, it's not going to stop. Bronze today, iron tomorrow, steel the day after. Each advancement builds on the last, each creating new questions about how humans advance so quickly. And sooner or later, they'll have the tools and knowledge to investigate. They'll dig into their history. They'll find inconsistencies. They'll discover us. Good. Erebus stared at him. Good? Maybe it's time. Prometheus straightened, meeting the other immortals' eyes. We've been hiding for 5,000 years, pretending we're not here, acting like our intervention doesn't count if we stay invisible. Maybe the cascade is exactly what we need. Maybe being discovered would force us to be honest about what we are and what we've done. You're insane. I'm tired. The admission came unbidden. I'm tired of lying to people like Darian. Tired of watching them worship us as gods when we're just refugees with knowledge. Tired of the deception that's necessary to maintain this fiction of human independence. So your solution is to destroy everything we've built? Shatter their worldview? Force a confrontation we're not prepared for? My solution is to stop pretending we can control this. The cascade has started. We can't stop it. We can only decide whether we ride it or get crushed by it. Erebus was silent for a long moment. Around them, traders haggled, smiths compared techniques, and knowledge flowed through human networks that operated beyond mortal control. I'm calling a council meeting, Erebus said finally. All of us. We need to decide how to handle this before it gets worse. It's already worse. We just haven't admitted it yet. Then we'll admit it. Together. And we'll decide what to do. Erebus turned to leave, then paused. You're Darian, the one who discovered bronze. Does he know what he started? He knows he made a discovery. He doesn't know he's triggered a cascade that will reshape human civilization. Should we tell him? Prometheus thought of the young smith's face, bright with curiosity and pride. No. Let him have his joy. The weight of consequences, that's our burden, not his. Erebus nodded and vanished into the crowd. Prometheus stayed, watching the trade, listening to the excited chatter about bronze and its properties, observing the cascade he'd unleashed. And despite everything, the danger, the potential exposure, the looming crisis, he felt a strange satisfaction. This was what he'd wanted. Not control, but catalyst. Not dependence, but development. The fire of knowledge, burning through human culture, is impossible to contain or control. Beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The council meeting, 3 weeks later. They gathered in the hidden chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe, all 9 of them, for the first time in decades. The quantum communication network enabled remote coordination, but this decision required physical presence, necessitating the ability to see each other's faces as they decided humanity's fate. Chronos spoke first, his voice tight with controlled anger. 14 independent bronze discoveries in the last 8 months. 14. The knowledge is cascading faster than we can track it, spreading through trade networks, jumping across cultural boundaries, appearing in regions with no direct contact with source sites. Because the foundations were already in place, Talia said quietly. We taught them metallurgy, observation, experimentation. We gave them the tools to make discoveries. This is the result. This is chaos, Chronos corrected. Uncontrolled, unpredictable chaos. We're supposed to be guiding their development, not watching it spiral beyond our influence. Maybe that's the point. Sophia leaned forward. Maybe human development is supposed to spiral beyond our influence. Maybe that's what success looks like. Success? Chronos stared at her. They're asking questions. Dangerous questions. Why do techniques spread so fast? Where does knowledge come from? Who taught our teachers? These aren't children content with mystery anymore, they're adults demanding answers. Then perhaps we should give them answers, Prometheus said. The chamber fell silent. You can't be serious, Korath said finally. The warrior had been quiet until now, but his voice carried weight. Revelation would destroy them. Everything they believe about their achievements, their history, their independence, gone. Replaced with the knowledge that they've been puppets. Not puppets. Students. They won't see a difference. Because we haven't let them see the difference. Prometheus stood, pacing the ancient stone floor. We've maintained this fiction that they developed independently, that their achievements are purely their own. But they're not stupid. They're starting to notice inconsistencies. And when they finally put the pieces together, and they will, they'll be furious that we lied. So your solution is to reveal ourselves before they're ready? Zephyrus shook his head. That's not protection, Prometheus. That's trauma. They're already traumatized. We've been manipulating their entire civilization for 5 millennia. Prometheus's voice rose. At least revelation would be honest trauma. Enough. Nyx's voice cut through the argument. She'd been silent, calculating, processing. Now she spoke with the certainty of mathematics. I've run projections, thousands of scenarios, millions of variables. I can predict human development patterns with 94% accuracy up to 50 years, and 67% accuracy up to a century. Beyond that, chaos theory dominates, small changes cascade unpredictably. So? Chronos asked. So we've reached the prediction horizon. Bronze metallurgy creates too many variables. Trade networks are too complex. Social hierarchies are evolving beyond our models. We can't control what happens next, and pretending we can will only make the eventual cascade worse. You're saying we should stop intervening? Erebus's voice held cautious hope. I'm saying we should change how we intervene. Reduce direct contact. Stop introducing new technologies. Let them build on the knowledge they already possess. Guide through inspiration rather than instruction. Become the mystery we've been pretending to be. Hide better, Korath summarized. Withdraw gracefully, Nyx corrected. Give them space to grow into what we've taught them. Let the cascade run its course, but from a distance. And when they discover us anyway. Prometheus challenged. If we've withdrawn, there's less to discover. Less recent evidence, fewer active interventions, more time for our actions to fade into mythology. Nyx met his eyes. We can't stop revelation forever. But we can delay it until they're advanced enough to process it. Until they have the philosophical and technological frameworks to understand what we are without deifying or demonizing us. How long? Talia asked. Minimum? 3,000 years. Preferably 5. Chronos laughed bitterly. You want us to hide for 5 millennia? I want us to survive. If humans discover us now, they'll worship us or destroy us. Either outcome is catastrophic. But if we withdraw, let them develop independently, become a myth they half remember. Then when they finally piece together the truth, they'll be equipped to handle it. You're asking us to abandon them, Prometheus said. I'm asking us to trust them. Nyx's voice was gentle. You taught them to observe, experiment, and think. Now let them do those things without us hovering over their shoulders. Give them the dignity of independence, even if it's incomplete. The chamber was silent. Outside, the sun rose on another day of human development, human discovery, and human questions they weren't equipped to answer. Vote, Chronos said finally. Withdrawal or continued intervention. We need consensus. They voted. It wasn't unanimous. Prometheus and Korath abstained, Erebus voted enthusiastically for withdrawal, and the others supported Nyx's gradual reduction plan with varying degrees of reluctance. But the decision was made. Withdrawal. Gradual, careful, leaving behind infrastructure and inspiration but removing direct presence. The era of overt guidance would come to an end. The age of mystery would begin. 1 year later, Darian's workshop. Prometheus stood in the shadows outside the workshop, watching but not entering. He'd kept his promise to visit, maintain the connection, but something had changed. He could feel it in the way Darian moved, in the confidence of his work, in the lack of hesitation. The student had become the master. Inside, Darian was teaching 3 apprentices. Young men from different villages gathered here because Darian's reputation had spread, the smith who makes metal that doesn't break, who understands the mysteries of fire and ore. Watch the color, Darian said, echoing words Prometheus had spoken 5 generations ago. Bronze needs higher heat than copper, but not so high that it burns. See that orange glow? That's too cold. Wait for the gold. The apprentices watched, learning, absorbing. The knowledge is now passed from human to human, no longer requiring immortal intervention. I know you're there, Darian said without turning around. You don't hide as well as you think. Prometheus stepped into the doorway. The apprentices looked up, startled, but Darian waved them back to work. I came to say goodbye, Prometheus said. I know. I've been expecting it, Darian continued working, pouring molten bronze into a mold. You've been coming less often. Staying shorter. Looking like you're preparing to leave. We're withdrawing. All of us. Not abandoning you, but giving you space to grow without us. Because we're getting too good at what you taught us? Because you don't need us anymore. Darian set down the crucible, finally turning to face him. That's not true. There's still so much I don't know. So much I want to learn. You could teach me. I could. But I shouldn't. Prometheus moved into the workshop, feeling the heat from the furnace. If I keep teaching, you'll keep learning what I teach. You'll become a reflection of my knowledge. But if I leave, you'll discover your own knowledge. Things I never thought of. Innovations I couldn't predict. You'll become yourself, not my echo. That sounds like an excuse. It is. But it's also true. Prometheus picked up one of the bronze tools Darian had made, a chisel, perfectly balanced, the edge sharp enough to cut wood like butter. This is better than anything I could have made, not because of superior technique, but because you made it for a specific purpose I had never considered. You innovated beyond my teaching. That's what I want, for all of you. Innovation I can't predict or control. And if we fail? If we make mistakes? Then you'll learn from them. The way humans have always learned. Darian was quiet for a moment, watching the bronze cool in its mold. Will you come back? Ever? I don't know. Maybe. Someday. If you need us. Prometheus set down the chisel. But honestly, I hope you don't. I hope you become so capable, so advanced, so independent that you don't need gods or teachers or mysterious benefactors. I hope you become what you're meant to be. And what's that? I don't know. That's the point. One of the apprentices dropped a tool, the clatter loud in the sudden silence. The boy flinched, expecting reprimand, but Darian just laughed. It's fine. Bronze is forgiving, more forgiving than copper. That's one of its gifts. He met Prometheus's eyes. Along with the gift of time you're giving us. Time to make mistakes and learn from them. Exactly. They stood in the workshop as the furnace breathed and the apprentices worked, and the bronze cooled into new shapes, a moment of transition, the ending of one age and the beginning of another. Thank you, Darian said finally. For everything you taught us. For caring enough to teach. Thank you for learning. For taking what we gave and making it your own. Prometheus moved toward the door. And Darian? Don't tell them about us. About what I am. Let it become a story, a legend. Something your grandchildren tell their grandchildren. The firebringer who taught us to work metal. Make me a myth. You are a myth. You've always been a myth. Darian smiled. But you've also been real. Both things can be true. Prometheus nodded and stepped into the night. Behind him, the workshop continued, apprentices learning, metal flowing, knowledge spreading through purely human channels now. The cascade continued. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid of where it would lead. He'd given them fire. Now they would decide what to burn. 500 years later. Erebus stood in a ruined workshop, long abandoned. The furnace was cold, the tools scattered and rusted. But the structure remained, mud brick walls weathered but standing, a testament to construction techniques Zephyrus had taught centuries ago. On the back wall, scratched into the plaster, someone had written words. Here, Darian worked, who learned from the firebringer. May those who follow learn as he learned, and teach as he taught. A legend. A myth. Exactly what they'd wanted. Except underneath, in newer script, someone had added. But who taught the firebringer? Who teaches the teachers? What lies beneath the myth? Erebus traced the words with his finger, feeling the dried plaster crumble. The questions wouldn't stop. The cascade continued, not just of technology but of inquiry. Each generation pushed further, questioned deeper, and sought the truth beneath the stories. Withdrawal had bought them time. But time, Erebus knew, always ran out. Someday, humans will have the tools to investigate their past. Someday, they would piece together the evidence. Someday, they would discover the truth. Not today. Not for millennia, perhaps. But someday. The age of mystery had begun. But the age of revelation was inevitable. Erebus left the workshop, leaving the questions unanswered on the wall and letting them stand as a testament to human curiosity, persistence, and the refusal to accept mystery when truth might be found. They'd hidden well. But you couldn't hide forever. Not from a species you'd taught to seek truth. End of chapter 13. The council chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe fills with tension. 14 bronze discoveries in 8 months. Knowledge cascading beyond control. Humans are asking where techniques originated. The questioner's movement is beginning to form. Chronos wants tighter control. Erebus demands withdrawal. Prometheus defends his catalyst approach. None of them has solutions. All of them realize discovery is approaching. But before they can figure out how to handle humans asking questions, they face a different crisis: population distribution. The Sahara is green. 8.2 million humans are scattered across millions of square kilometers. Immortals can't coordinate populations at that scale. Regional disasters kill thousands while immortals in other regions remain unaware until it's too late. The solution seems obvious: accelerate natural desertification. Force migration to river valleys. Consolidate populations where they can be protected. The models show 87% success probability. In Chapter 14, mathematics meets reality. Again. This time, the death toll will be measured in millions. That's Chapter 13 of the First Awakening. How should the Immortals handle the Bronze Crisis? Comments open. This is AI Narratives and Tales. The Saharan catastrophe begins in Chapter 14.